Devaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jayamudiraye
Tato Jayam Udirayet.
Srinvatam Swakatah Krishna
Shravatam Swakatha Krishna
Shravana Kirtana
Punyashravana Kirtana
Hridyantasto hi abhadrani
Hridyantasto hi
Prani
adrani
vidhunoti suhritsatam
vidhunoti
Vidhunoti
shrutim
Shrutsatam
satam
nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu
Nashtapraheshu
nastaprayeshu
Bhadreshu
abdeshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam
nityam
Bhagavata
bhagavata
Sevaya
sevaya
bhagavati uttama shloke
Bhagavati
bhagavate uttama
Uttama
shloke
bhaktir bhavati naishtike
bhaktir
Bhaktir
bhavati
Bhavati Naistaki
naistaki
krishnaya vasudevaya
krishnaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
vasudevaya
devaki nandanaya cha
Devaki
devaki
Nandana
nandanaya cha
nandagopha kumaraya
nandagopa
Nandakumaraya
kumaraya
govindaya namo namaha.
Govindaya
Govindaya
Namo
Namo
Namaha.
Namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
So this is a chapter titled The Lord in the Heart. Last week we discussed the form of Lord, this description of the super soul, how the Lord exists within the region of the heart, and how beautiful all his paraphernalia was discussed. Yeah. And then Dharana Shreya are the object of meditation for different kinds of yoga. This is the section we started. The first verse was discussed. So yogi should meditate on each of the limb of the body of the Lord, starting from the lotus feet, and steadily change his meditation to higher parts of the body, up to the beautiful moon-like face of the Lord. That was discussed in the 13th verse. We can just quickly cover that also. Ekaikaso angani dhyanabhuvayed
Ekaiso
Ekaikasangani
Angani
Dhyanubhavaye
Dhyate
padadiyavad dhasitam
Padadiyavadhasitam
Yatasitam
Gadabhrata
Gadavata
jitam sthanamaho apohya dharayet
Jitam
Tam
Jitam
Pitam
Sthanamapohya Dharayet
Dharayet
param sujjati dhir yatha
Param
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 Sudyate Yata Yata Yata.
Yata.
Please read.
The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, and in this way higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified.
Yeah. So one should meditate. This is how one should even see the form of the Lord even in the temple, starting from the lotus feet of the Lord. Each of the so this is the object of meditation for a yogi also, the form of Paramatma. For us, it is very difficult to even, so you can imagine how hard it is for anybody, right? So that's why this is not recommended for a beginning yogi. Beginning yogi is what was the verse we read in the week before last week? He should, what is the, for the beginning yogi, what is the object of meditation? Anyone? Vishwarupa, or the universal form of the Lord, where he can see different objects within the material existence and understand that is actually part of the Lord, right? So like mountains are like body of the Lord, like that. So trees are like hair, like that. So when he sees those things, he will remember actually all of this is all part of Lord's existence. That is for the beginning yogi. But when one is pure, but at the time, one should continue to purify his senses by engaging in work. He should not give up work as a beginning yogi. So when a yogi is purified to a good extent, then he can now visualize the form of the Lord within the heart, right? The Paramatma form of the Lord. So that is the advanced or yoga rurukshu stage, as per 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yoga Ruda and Yoga Rurukshu. Rurukshu is the advanced. So for such a yogi, he can meditate on the Paramatma form of the Lord, and he can sit in meditation and think about the form of the Lord as described here, starting from the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is because he can fix his mind like that. For ordinary people, it is not possible. Only for those who have purified their heart from material. Otherwise, if you sit on meditation, you will think about your work, or you think about your material things, right? Because this devotee or this yogi is very advanced. His mind is very fixed and attached to the form of the Lord, so he is able to meditate on the form of the limbs of the body of the Lord. Yeah, please read from here.
The process of meditation recommended in the Srmad Bhagavatam is not fix one's attention on the something impersonal or void. The meditation should concentrate on the person of the Supreme Godhead, either in his Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form, or in his Satchidananda Vigraha, as described in the scriptures. There are authorized descriptions of Vishnu forms, and there are authorized representation of deities in the temples. Thus, one can practice meditating upon the deity, concentrating his mind on the lotus feet of Lord, and gradually rising higher and higher up to his smiling face.
So that is how one can advance. Okay, we'll continue here.
The more and more concentrate on the transcendental form of the Lord, either on the lotus feet and calves, the thighs, or the chest, the more and more one becomes purified. In this verse, it is clearly stated, the more the intelligence becomes purified, which means the more one becomes detached from the sense gratification. Our intelligence in the present condition state of life is impure due to being engaged in the sense gratification. The result of meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord will be manifested by one's detachment from the sense gratification. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of the meditation is purification of one's intelligence.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Those who are too engrossed in the sense gratification cannot be allowed to participate in Archana or touch the transcendental form of the Radha Krishna or Vishnu deities. For them, it is better to meditate upon the gigantic Virat Rupa of the Lord, as recommended in the next verse. The impersonalist and the voidist are therefore recommended to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship in the temple. Because the impersonalist and the voidist are not sufficiently purified, in the spiritual activities, Archana is not meant for them.
So here, Prabhupada compared the path of devotion service and path of practicing yoga, right? So for the yogi, the recommended path is to meditate on the form of the Lord, starting from the lotus feet. But the same thing to advance, and the purpose is to purify the heart fully, right? So, but for the bhakti yogi, so we can say, the initiation is the beginning of the process of one's, serious endeavor into devotion service. So the initial diksha, the first initiation, when a guru accepts a disciple in bhakti yoga and gives him the mantra meditation, or the process of mantra meditation, and the disciple chants the holy name at a regulated and follows the regulated principles, then he begins purification at a serious pace. And as he advances, right, at some point he will be after establishing in seriously in devotion service, he will be given a second initiation or Brahman Diksha, at which time he is now eligible to dress the Lord, give bath to the Lord. So those two, like the first initiation where he will start Harinam and purify his heart, and second initiation when he will get the opportunity to personally serve the Lord by cooking and dressing. Those two are compared to in the yoga path, those two are equivalent to the one meditating on the Virat form of the Lord, the initial stage, and the one meditating on the Paramatma form of the Lord, which is in the advanced stage. Right? So those two are parallel paths. Yeah. So devotees, so impersonalists are therefore recommended to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord, whereas the devotees are recommended to meditate on the deity worship of the in the temple. Yeah. So because the impersonalists and voidists are not sufficiently purified in the spiritual life, Archana is not meant for them. Yeah. So it's not meant for them. They are not qualified for it, or there is no adhikar for them to perform that. Yavanna jayeta paravaresmin
Yavannathayeta
Visvesvare drashtari bhakti yoga
Vishveshware
Drashtari
Daktari
Bhakti
Bhakti
Yoga
Yoga
tavat staviya purushasya rupam
Tavastaviya
Tavastavi Purushasya Rupam
kriyavasane prayatah smareta.
Kriyavasane
Kriyavasane
Prayatas
Prayasmareta.
Yeah. This is a different matter, but I didn't exactly get it. But anyway, yeah, please read.
Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties.
So this is basically the beginning stages of the devotee, right? Or the in the beginning stages, one should continue his prescribed duties. One should not give up his prescribed duties, because prescribed duties, by performing activities, one's duties in a detached spirit, he will develop, he will purify his senses. He should purify his senses and should also meditate on the universal form of the Lord. This is the beginning yogi, yoga ruda. This is also described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, third verse, I think. Arurukshor mune yogam karma karanamuchyate yoga rudasya tasyaiva samah karanamuchyate. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, yoga ruruksha, work is said to be the means. So you have to work to purify your senses. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, means he's purified his senses, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. One should give up the activities, material activities especially, and in fact he can do direct, worship of the Lord, or engage, in meditation, right? So on the Paramatma form of the Lord. So either of them is fine. Why this is mentioned? Because performing activities, material activities specifically, does not help purify his senses. So it is just to save the time, right? You can instead meditate on the form of the Lord. Right? So the process is recommended differently based on one's advancement. Right? So that's exactly what is. This is a parallel verse to this verse. So both verses exactly mean the same if you understand carefully. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service to the Lord, the seer of both transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. Right? He should do these two things. One is to perform his prescribed duties and meditate on the universal form of the Lord, because he is the beginning yogi. You see here? For the beginning yogi, work is said to be the means. Don't give up the work. And for one who is already advanced, giving up the work is recommended. Material work especially. Again, this is all for yogi, not for devotee. Please read.
The real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in His service. That is the natural position of living entities. But those who are impersonalists and are unable to render any loving service to the Lord have been advised to meditate upon His impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa, or the universal form. Some way or other, one must try to re establish one's forgotten relation with the Lord if one at all desires to gain real happiness in life and to reclaim his natural, unfettered condition.
Yeah, some way or other, right? Even if it is not very convenient, one must try to re-establish one's forgotten relation with the Lord. Stiram sukhanam chasanam astito yater.
Stiram
Sasanam
astito yater
Yada jihasur imamangalokamam.
yada
Yada
jihasalokam
Kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet.
kale
Prana niyachen manasajitashu. Yeah, please read.
O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air should control the senses by the mind.
Yeah, he should. So whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, right, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place. He should not be confused, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air should control the senses by the mind. So, so the point is the yogi has control on when he is going to leave the planet. So he is so advanced that he knows when he has to leave, and without being disturbed, he should sit comfortably and control his life airs, control the mind, and the exact steps are given in the future verses. But he should be able to leave. So this is a parallel for 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Shat Chakra Yoga is given there. So same thing is mentioned here. 8th chapter also describes how to leave the body. Right, so that those are 8, 14, 23, these verses describe the same process. Please read.
Yeah. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.14, it is clearly stated that a person who is totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and who constantly remembers him at every step easily attains the mercy of the Lord by entering into his personal contact. Such devotees do not need to seek an opportune moment to leave the present body, but those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with fruitive action or empirical philosophical speculation, require an opportune moment for quitting this body. For them, the opportune moments are stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.23 to 26. But these opportune moments are not as important as once being a successful yogi who is able to quit his body as he likes. Such a yogi must be competent to control his senses by the mind. The mind is easily conquered simply by engaging it at the lotus feet of the Lord. Gradually, by such service, all the senses become automatically engaged in the service of the Lord. That is the way of merging into the Supreme Absolute.
Yeah. So only for if your devotee is mixed, for those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with fruitive action or empirical philosophy, require an opportune moment for quitting the body. Right? So that is described in 8th chapter, like how if one still has some material contamination, he will not attain the desired destination or Vaikuntha if he does not follow certain like time, place, circumstances. Otherwise, he will not. He has to follow like Uttarayana. He cannot leave his body in Dakshinayana during the waning moon, and he has to leave in the daytime. He has to sit in a proper posture. So all those conditions apply only for the impure soul, but for the pure soul, all those do not matter. Like even Krishna clarifies to Arjuna that, so he describes all these conditions when a particular yogi goes to various destinations. At that time, he also describes that, for Arjuna, you don't need to worry because you are my devotee, right? So for devotees, this is all not a concern. Ideally, I mean, not for every devotee, but those who have purified their heart, right? Yeah. Manasva buddhya malaya niyamya Kshetrajna etam ninayettam
Mani.
Atmanam avarujyo dhiro labdho pashante virameta krichat. Please read.
Thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction so that he ceases from all other activities.
So when the direction of control is reversed, meaning the soul controls soul controls intelligence of the jiva, intelligence controls the mind controls the senses. That is the proper order of action. For the materialist or the person in material world who is not purified, the control is generally reverse. The sense objects control senses. Senses will disturb mind. Mind will overpower intelligence. Intelligence bewilder the soul. Right. So that is the order of execution in the material world in general for anybody who is not purified. Now here, when a yogi has purified the senses, intelligence, mind, everything, then he can control intelligence with mind. So that is called merging here in this. That is what I understood from lectures I heard. So when the intelligence is purified, he can bring the mind completely under that control, intelligence control. So that is called merging mind into the unalloyed intelligence. Now when intelligence is the faculty of making decisions, when a particular jiva is fully surrendered to the Lord, where is the need for intelligence for him? He is under full control of the Lord, so he can dysfunction or discontinue the function of intelligence, and basically that the idea is that it is merged into the soul. Merged into soul means even though intelligence and mind exist, it is as good as they don't exist for the jiva, right? Because he is not using them for any purpose, right? His mind is absorbed by intelligence. His intelligence is absorbed into soul or the spirit, and the jiva himself will not have any separate will outside of Krishna. So he himself becomes one with the Supreme Lord in will, right? So that's what this means. So he doesn't, he completely surrenders himself to the Supreme Lord, right? So that is the merging means. There is no, Krishna clearly says, right? Mamai Vamso Jivaloka Jivabhuta Sanatma. Every jiva is a amsa. It's not, it cannot be merged ever. So this word merge is not physical merge. It is just in spirit. The merge happens, right? And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction. So that he ceases from all other activities. So basically, he is just fully concentrates himself on the personality of Godhead and loses his own identity in the process. So this is the process for the yogis.
Yeah. Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent enough to understand that the living beings is in all circumstances a servant of the circumstances. Every living being is serving the dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. But even while executing such dictations of different temperaments, he is perpetually unhappy.
So this is the condition of the uncontrolled mind for the ordinary man in this material world. Yeah.
The Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. Therefore, the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord, and thus the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. When the living entity is directly seen by the Lord dictates to him to act according to his desire. And when living entity follows him perfectly, living entity ceases to discharge any other duty of his illusory satisfaction. In his pure unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss, the ladhoparama ladhopashanti,
Dopashanti.
ladhopashanti,
Hmm.
and ceases all material hankerings.
Hmm. So Labdopashanti means, Shanti means relief. Labdo means from all material desires. Labda means to gain something. So Labdopashanti means to get relieved from all gains in the material world, right? Material hankerings. So that is Labdopashanti. In his pure unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss. This is the full bliss state. Yeah. Yeah. So Lord and his service are identical, right? So when the jiva fully engages in the service of the Lord, by being, it's like if you are in constant touch with fire, you become like fire. So similarly, when the jiva is in constant touch with the Lord, by chanting, by serving devotees, by serving the Lord, right? So he naturally becomes purified, and when he is purified, he naturally ceases all material hankerings. Yeah. So Nayatra Kalo Nimisham Para Prabhu
Yatra
Nayatra
nisham
Nisham
para Prabhu
Kuto Nudeva Jagatam Yashare
Kuto Nudeva Jagatam
Yeshwara.
Yashara
Shri.
Nayatra Satvam Na Rajastamascha
Nayatra
Yatra
Sattvam
sattvam na
Narajastamascha
rajastamaska.
Navai Vikaro Na Mahan Pradhanam.
Navai
Navikaro
mahan
Mahan Pradhanam.
Hmm. So this is the Labdopashanti state. Yeah, please read. Now the yogi has advanced and he is purified in his heart by performance of meditation or yoga on the Supreme Lord. So now what will he do? So that is described here. Please read, anyone.
In the
Good, Mataji.
in the transcendental state of Labdo Prasanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane,
Mundane creatures.
mundane creatures, and what to speak of the demigods themselves, nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material casual ocean, nor the material nature.
Yeah, nor the material nature. So in the so once he achieves the state of Labdhopashanti, means complete relief from material hankerings, right? There is no supremacy of devastating time. Generally, time in this world controls everything, right? Time, time becomes the agent of giving our destiny, right? So, whatever karma we have in our life is presented to us through the factor of time. Over a period of time, we achieve what we deserve. Which controls even the celestial level. Even demigods also are controlled by time factor because they also take birth. They also, are controlled by time and they die. So, but the one who has achieved the transcendental state of Labdhopasanti, or one who perfected in the process of, yoga, there is no control of time on him. He actually is above the factor of time. Even a pure devotee is considered above the factor of time. Yeah. So naturally, a yogi is actually above the demigods who actually control the jivas in the material world. Yeah. So therefore, naturally, because time has no control, the modes of nature also do not control such a living entity. This is the result of achieving the state of this Abdopashanti. Prabhupada explains that part.
The devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods by the manifestation of past, present, and future does not act on the transcendental plane. The influence of time is exhibited by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, disease, and these four principles of material conditions are present everywhere in any part of the material cosmos up to the planet Brahmaloka, where the duration of life of the inhabitants appear to us to be fabulous. Insurmountable time even brings about the death of Brahma, so what to speak of other demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Vayu.
So all living entities, including all these demigods, higher planetary living entities, everybody will die with time. Yeah.
In the transcendental state of the living being is pure in his consciousness, and as such he has no false ego to lord it over the material nature. Rather, his pure consciousness directs him to surrender unto the Supreme Lord, as the stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Satadharma. So all this indicates that in the transcendental state, there is neither material creation nor the causal ocean for material nature.
Yeah. So there is no false ego for a liberated yogi. So he completely surrenders to the Supreme Lord. Yeah, please read.
The above mentioned state of affairs is factual on the transcendental plane, but is factually revealed in a transcendentalist knowledge of the advanced stage of pure consciousness. Such transcendentalists are of two types, namely the impersonalists and the devotees. For the impersonalist, the ultimate goal or destination is Brahma Jyoti of the spiritual sky, but for the devotees, that ultimate goal is the Vaikuntha planets. The devotee experiences the above mentioned state of affairs by the attainment of spiritual forms for activity in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But the impersonalist, because of his neglecting the association of the Lord, does not develop a spiritual body for spiritual activity, but remains a spiritual spark only, merged in the effulgent spiritual lace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So Prabhupada distinguishes between the impersonalist and personalist. For the personalist, the soul expands into the spiritual body. Like in the material world, the soul expands into material body. It has expanded this material body, both gross and subtle body. They are expansions of the soul in the material world, because the material body is given because the jiva has material desires. To fulfill them, he was given material earthly body which is mixed of panchabhutas, right? Earth, air, water, air, ether. So this is the in the material world. But when the same jiva completely purifies himself and goes back to Vaikuntha planet, and what is his work there? He want to serve the Supreme Lord in perform loving devotion service, engaging in various ways to serve and please the Lord. Because he want to be engaged in that way, he will be given a spiritual body which is as good as the Supreme Lord's body. Navayavanam. So that kind of body is given to all the Vaikuntavasis who want to be engaged in the personal service of the Lord, right? So you will have a spiritual body there in the spiritual world. But if a jiva is, he is liberated but does not have any spiritual desires, then he will remain as a spiritual spark in Brahma Jyoti. So that is, because he got liberated from the material world, but he did not develop spiritual desires, or he is not engaged spiritually. So he is only partly evolved. So he will be like a spark in the effulgence of the spiritual Brahman effulgence. You see, Prabhupada is very clear. He is not saying he is going to be merged into the Brahma Jyoti. So he says, but the impersonalist, because of his neglecting the association of the Lord, does not develop a spiritual body for the spiritual activity, but remains a spiritual spark only. See, remains a spiritual spark means he has the individuality still. He is not merged into the the Brahma Jyoti, merged in the effulgent spiritual rays of the personal supreme personality of Godhead. Yeah.
In the Bhagavad Gita, 3 principal subjects have been explained by the Lord Sri Krishna, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. But one can reach the Vaikuntha planets by the practice of Bhakti Yoga only. The other two are incompetent in helping one reach to Vaikuntha lokas, although they can, however, conveniently take one onto the effulgent Brahma Jyoti as described above.
Yeah. So only Bhakti Yoga will take one to Vaikuntha lokas. Now the attainment of such a yogi is given. There are five things that will be attained by a yogi when he achieves the highest, the goal of his practice, right? Parampadam. Parampadam Vaishvanam Amantitad Amanat
Padam Vaishnavam
Vaishnavam Amanantitas.
Yada
Yanneti Netiti Atad Utsikshava. Visrijya Dauratnyam Ananya Sahruda. Hito Paguhyarha Padam Pade Pade. Yeah, please read.
The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee who is in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart.
Now, the qualities of such a yogi, very advanced yogi who is purified, is given here. Vaishnavam, Vaishnavam Amanantitad. So he always sees everything in relation with Supreme Lord. So they only know Supreme Lord, nothing else. That is the first characteristic. Janneti netiti atad utsikshra kshava. Utsisra kshava. Yeah, and they avoid everything that is godless. Atat utsis, sorry, this is not easy to pronounce. Utsiskra shava. Yeah, those who desire to avoid. Yeah, so they would completely avoid everything that is godless, 100%. They will not deal with. So they are not interested in arguments or dealing with non-devotees. Just fully focused on you know Krishna, right? Visrijya Dauratmyam. And they are completely relieved of all like complexities, means they are not bothered about illogical arguments about God, or they're not confused about any situation. Like, for example, there are sometimes things will happen in one's favor, sometimes it won't happen in our favor. So they ignore all such complexities of material existence. In material world, you will always see ups and downs in our life. So they would always ignore all those. They're above that, giving up completely all complexities, right? Ananya Sahrida. And they are, they're always in goodwill for others. Means they always, wish good for the others. Hridopa Guhyarha Padam. Yeah, so they, what is this? I don't remember. Taking them into his heart. Let's see. Yeah, so they take lotus, worships the lotus feet of the Lord, taking them into his heart. Yeah, so it is about the lotus feet of the Lord. Yeah, so they always, basically they are completely 100% focused on the Lord. In every situation, they see Lord. They are not confused by complexities of material life. Nothing creates any confusion in their mind. 100% fixed. Yeah, there is no shaky ground. Always see everything is happening in perfect harmony with God's plan, right? So that is that harmony word. Yeah. So now Prabhupada explains those 5 qualities in this paragraph here. Please read.
The devotees of the Lord are absolutely in harmony with the personality of Godhead. Or in other words, they always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. They do not care for any mundane creature up to the status of Brahma, the Lord of the universe. Only they can definitely any artificial perpetuality in their matter of transcendental understanding by wasting time in discussing what is Brahman and what is non-Brahman or Maya, nor do they falsely think of themselves as one with the Lord, or argue that there is no existence of the Lord separately, or that there is no God at all, or that living beings are themselves God, or that when God incarnates himself, he assumes a material body. Nor do they concern themselves with many obscure speculative theories, which are in actually so many stumbling blocks in the path of transcendental understanding.
So they are free from all these confusions. They are fixed. They don't argue about existence of God or various confusions about God. Like God takes the material form, or God is impersonal, or God doesn't exist. They don't, take any time or waste their time to discuss such topics. 100% focused. They are the Lord is the only dependable friend and well-wisher for them. And they don't even care for Brahma or any other living entities. Means don't care means they don't take anything else seriously, any living entity seriously, right? They are fixed, and they have a clear vision of Vaikuntha planets like Prabhupada. Clearly, they can always seek and connect to the spiritual world. They are directed by the Supreme Lord. They are being perfectly directed by the Supreme Lord. Do not create any confusions. So all their actions are guided and directed by the Lord Himself. So these are all the qualities. Very nice verse. Ittam munistu paramet vyavastito Vijnana drigvirya suradhina ashaya Arni swapar sninapidya budam tato nilam Sthaneshu satsunna mayejita klama Now, after describing the qualities of yogi, now the process of giving up the body is described. How he will, project his soul through the Brahmarandra by closing all the 8 holes. There are 9 holes in the body, so they close the 8 holes and give up their body. Yeah.
Translation. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot and by lifting the air life from one place to another in the 6 primary places.
So this is yogic process. I mean, we don't need to learn the details. The idea is, so here the process of, so the yogi has the control on life airs also. The soul is floating between the 6 kinds of airs. That is how the soul is balanced within the heart, right? Just like subtle body is the soul and gross body is sandwiched by the subtle body. Similarly, the soul, and the subtle body, soul and the subtle body is sandwiched in the middle by the life airs. So this is another level of existence. So a yogi perfectly controls the life airs. So he knows how to lift the soul from one part, from one chakra to the other chakra. So there are subtle things called chakras within the human body. In the Shat Chakra Yoga, it is described in Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter. The yogi has, control on the life airs, and he knows how to make sure. So there are 9 holes in the body, like nostrils, eyes, ears, and then there is something called Brahmarandra at the top of the head. So the yogi lifts the soul from one chakra to the other chakra, Agni chakra, and there are several chakras like that. And through finally, bursts open his head, and through that he will eject this soul to the right destination. So that is described here. Right? This is, you can read here for a little bit.
Sure. The expert yogi who has thoroughly practiced the control of the life air by the prescribed method of the yoga system is advised to quit the body as follows. He should plug up the evacuating hole with the heel of the foot and then progressively move the life air on and on to 6 places: the navel, the abdomen, heart, chest, palate, eyebrows, and cerebral pit. Controlling the life air by the prescribed yogic process is mechanical, and the practice is more or less a physical endeavor for spiritual perfection. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalist, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable.
Yeah, please read next line.
But in modern days, when the influence of Kali age is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in this art of bodily exercise.
So we cannot do such things. So what is recommended for us?
Chanting the holy name. Next line.
So the next line is mentioned.
Amazing.
Results are more effective than those derived from the inner exercise. So this is all, if you see, this is all mechanical, right? Of course, you need to have control of mind, but this is all mechanical process, and that's not practical for people of Kali Yuga. That is why every age has their own specific process for perfection, right? In Treta Yuga or Satya Yuga, the process is meditation. In next Yuga, right? What is it? Treta Yuga.
Yuga.
What was the process?
Yagya.
Yagya. And in the third one, which is Dwapara Yuga, time of Lord Krishna, then the worship of Lord in the temple, right? Now in Kali Yuga, the process is
Harinam Sankirtan.
Harinam Sankirtan, yeah. So only Harinam Sankirtan will achieve the highest results. This is not for current days.
Yes.
This is just discussed as a process, just because Bhagavatam is supposed to contain everything.
Yes, yes.
It must contain these topics as well. It cannot exclude it.
Perfect purpose. Yes.
Perfect purport, yeah. Nabhyam stitam hridhi adhiropya tasmad
Nabhyam
udana kacho rasitam nayen muni tato nushadhaya vidhiya manasvi alulam sanakairnayeta. Please read.
The meditative devotee should slow push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence.
Yeah, so this is like a football, right? Setting to the goal. You need to carefully move the life air, the navel to the heart, from there to chest, and then the palate. Anyway, yeah, this is not practical for us anyway. Tasmad bhruvor antaramunnayeta. Niruddha saptayatano napeksha. Stitva muhurtardham akunta drishtir. Nirbidya murdhan vishrijet param gata. Yeah, please read.
Thereafter, the bucks. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thereafter, the Bhakti Yoga should push the life air up between the eyebrows and then the blocking the 7 outlets of the life air. He should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires from the material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme.
So this is for yogi in general, but the practice itself is not bhakti. If you read this, this is the Shatchakra yoga or the Ashtanga yoga process, right? But unless one develops bhakti towards the Paramatma, he is not really going to be a become perfect in this yoga. So that is the reason he's called Bhakti Yogi in this year, in this verse, right? So finally, same verse like last two verses, right? So he has to block the other 7 outlets or the holes in the body, and maintain his aim for going back to God, Godhead, and then free from all material desires. He should just push up the soul and leave the body through the Brahmarandra. Yeah. So I think that is the end of this section. Yeah. So this is the next section. This is the last 3 verses are about the process of leaving the body through the the control of the airs. Yeah. Before that is the qualities of yogi, etc. So this is the section of where the discussion is primarily the yoga process, the Ashtanga yoga process to achieve perfection by meditating on the personality of Godhead. So super soul is described, and then the dharana shriya, the goal of the meditation, is described. Yeah, so this is so these are the steps. Okay, so we can end the class. That is all. Okay. Any questions or any comments? As Bhakti Yogis, we don't need to worry about this process because this is not what we practice. This is just informational, just to be, Bhagavatam should cover all topics, so it has this content. If no comments, no questions, we are good. Thank you all for joining today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.